All right, cool. All right, so thank you very much for jumping on. We're going to go through kind of agenda of things to kind of lay out where things are currently sitting with the Indie Educational Hub, some stuff that's coming up into the future here. It's moving fairly quickly now that we kind of got some green lights and just get everybody back on the same page. So first off, I'm just going to start by saying thanks for your patience because I know this has been a little bit of a well, if I'm speaking for myself, it's been frustrating at times to say the least. But in that frustration, there are good things that have happened in this system, and I'm going to share a little bit of that as we go through this. So just to give you a current update, we're sitting right at like 4,300 people that are currently using um, the Indie Educational Hub as it sits. We've had a lot of activity actually, probably over the last 5 weeks, with teachers coming in and taking courses for credit renewal. So that's taken shape quite nicely. I've probably written now close to 40 letters of certification to ESPB as we're waiting for credit to come online with UND. Honestly, one of the issues that we're dealing with right now, that's kind of a new issue with UND, is we have people who are taking more than 4 credits on the hub for credit renewal where they're licensed, and UND will only issue 4 credits in an academic year with our professional development courses study that we have filed with them. So that's something that we're working through on our end with some of the courses that we're running on there. And then content. There's been a lot of content that's built out on the system. And so I think right now we're still tracking at a little over 60 courses that are actually in there from all kinds of different areas within the system itself. So that's that point number one with where we're currently sitting there. Number two, this is where I want to spend a little bit of time explaining some stuff because I'm going to explain some things that I've had for feedback from the tenants, and then I'm going to explain what I've been dealing with and Kate has been dealing with. Kate, you can chime in here too, of kind of where we're at with Open LMS. So just to give you a little bit of background for those of you who weren't a part of this when we first started, this with Open LMS, and we took an Open LMS system that was already in place and we built it out to a multi-tenancy platform, which was a new product that they were launching. And they felt very confident that it would suit the needs of a multi-tenancy platform for our REAs to all have a space in there. Now, what that looks like currently today is we all have a tenant space within the system, but one of the issues that we're running into, and we're running into it regularly, is where the controls lay for the tenant managers within that system. And so every time basically what's happened in the last 3 times they've done an update on the system, the customized permissions that we allow people who have a tenant manager spot to kind of do whatever they want within that system, they're getting reset. And so once they get reset, then they default back to the original, and it's taking like 4 to 5 week turnaround to get our permissions figured out and back to where they need to go. And in my opinion, it's completely unacceptable. But the problem is that I do not have the ability to change that. That has to go back to the parent company, and then they have to do it. There's a technician there that has to go through our system and reset it. And so, I've had a go around for probably the last 18 months dealing with this, and it's not getting any better. And then on top of that, one of the things that we're dealing with now too, and Kate will probably elaborate on this too, is just the overall technical assistance from the company itself. So long story short, there's definitely something with the company that's taken place as they've had some changeover. Our primary port of contact who actually helped to build the system that we currently have left, and that left a gaping hole in our services provided by the company. And so, I've tried to argue with them, you just need to allow me to have the same permissions as that person who left. Because if I personally can have the same permissions, then I can actually do everything that needs to happen in the system and we move along just fine. Well, they won't grant those to me. That's kind of their end all be all control over the system. And which I understand, but at the same time, if they don't have somebody with the technical capacity to actually be responsive to what we need for a statewide system to grow, then it definitely hinders our capacity to be able to grow. And so in that situation, we end up with delayed technical assistance. So like for an example, like just trying to get our dashboard page. So if you go on and you type it in the Educational Hub and you see the dashboard the way that it's laid out now, like it took us 8 weeks to get them to that point. And that's with just them getting it designed. And Kate basically built out the rest of the content into it. But that's HTML programming, which isn't an issue, but if they would give us the permission to do it, then we could do it. So it's one of
Yeah,
those
it
give and
would be just
takes.
like as simple as a font would get changed anytime I tried to go in and update like a course highlight or something, or change a link, it would revert back. And so I'd submit a ticket because we don't have the permissions to change that ourselves. And 2 to 3 weeks before they would respond to my ticket, and then even further before it would actually get fixed. And so that was, part of the frustrating piece is we're putting out this platform, and it like looks unprofessional because we can't get a response from OpenLMS to just do their job, basically.
Yeah. And I'm not big on excuses, and I'll totally own the fact of where the system currently sits with OpenLMS, but I want you to understand, like, when we try to resolve something with them, like the first 12 months that we were running within the system, they were fairly good. First 8 months, really, they were really good. And then it started to peter off. And now where we currently sit now, I think what's happening, and I can say this because we have another outside partner that we work with that also works in conjunction with OpenLMS. What's happening is that OpenLMS as a company is going through some serious tribulation. They've had a turnover at their CEO position. They're trying to restructure their company. They canceled their in-person. Um, they kind of do like a big in-person PD event in North Carolina that we were actually invited to go to talk about a multi-tenancy platform and the good, the bad, and the ugly of what we've been trying to accomplish up here in North Dakota. And they canceled that entire in-person event, which to me, these are just all red flags, right? Like they're big red flags. So if you fast forward to basically about 4 months ago, kind of the biggest red flag that hit me, was when we were having a meeting with them and our account manager himself. So the number one contact that I have at OpenLMS who manages our account, he's like my failsafe. Like if I have an issue that I can't get resolved within technical assistance, I escalate to him and then he escalates way past his pay grade in order to get it resolved. And I've only had to do that like, maybe half a dozen times, which is quite honestly ridiculous. But um, like I put in an email to him saying I need, X, Y, and Z taken care of now. And I'm not asking, I'm telling you, like as somebody who's providing a service for North Dakota in this project that we're trying to lay out, this needs to be executed. And it was still 3 weeks before I even got a reply back. And at that point, I went to my director, Debbie, and I talked with Ann Ellison and Kate, and we said, we have to do something different. This, there's too much potential for a system like this to work in North Dakota without the partner. And again, if you go back to the very beginning, one of the reasons why we stuck with them is because they had the capacity to do a multi-tenancy platform, and the other ones that we had kind of looked at in that process did not. And so we felt confident that that was the way to go. Hindsight's 2020. So here's where we're moving. And I wanted to be very, very transparent with this because you have to go through a procurement process, and that's why it's also taken a little bit of time to get to this point. But now it's going to move quite rapidly, actually. So in that 4 months, I've been researching and discovering alternative LMS options. Obviously, Canvas is always out there, and people talk about Canvas. It's a great product. When we looked at Canvas originally 2.5 years ago, when we started this, they didn't have the multi-tenancy platforming. They do now. They see that that's a definite need, and I'll explain a case study that I'll talk about there. We also looked at Blackboard. Um, what's your question, Chris? Sorry, I saw that pop up. Researching on your own or with whom? Yeah, our whole NCEC team and with DPI, like Kate at DPI, is who we've been going through this process with. Yep. Um, and so basically now we looked at Blackboard, obviously with higher ed using Blackboard, and then we went back to OpenLMS and I went back to them and just asked them straight up, like, can you rectify this and can you give me, what it would look like moving out another 3-year development on this. And again, it was like 2.5 weeks before I got a reply back from OpenLMS. Blackboard, I don't believe will deliver exactly what we want to try to accomplish here. And then with Canvas, if you look at Canvas, so Canvas is the learning management system, but in Structure, the parent company, there's multiple pieces to it. So there's the Studio, which is a plugin to Canvas, which gives you a ton of creator options or content creator options. And then there's Instructure's catalog. Okay. And so these are all things that work simultaneously with each other. And catalog, that's that's Instructure, the parent company's solution to the multi-tenancy platforming. And so we can build the multi-tenancy platform where every person will have their own unique category within the system. So NCEC, SEEC, RRVEC, you all have your same kind of category. The big thing is that you have total control over your category, right? Because as we vetted this out, and we started to lean more into Canvas, we actually brought Canvas's team to North Dakota and we met with them for a whole day. And we did a big run through of all of their stuff. And I obviously have a series of pretty significant questions to go through with them to be answered. And the biggest thing that I wanted to know is if we move this direction, if this is the direction we move, how do we get total control over what we're trying to do here? So then I can give that out to the people who are running within the tenants, and then they can leverage that with the people who are creating content, whether it's themselves or somebody underneath them, to make sure that the content is the best it possibly can be. We still have our checks in place for statewide content. We can talk about that later. But the biggest thing is making sure that you have access and control over it, so there's not that roadblock, right? And we want a good user experience. And that's the other thing, is if we're going to make a shift, and we know we needed to make a shift, we need to have the end user experience be the best it can be. We need to have better portability with the system, in my opinion, which is, that mobile user experience needs to be really good. And so we started laying out, like, here's our wish list again with an LMS system. Here are the things that we absolutely need to be performing at a higher level than what we're currently get with OpenLMS, and how can we accomplish that? And so after all of that, and then coming all the way to the end, we feel very strongly that Canvas and Instructure as the parent company is the right LMS system to work forward with. And so over that process, then we have to go back to DPI, our NCEC governing board. I presented at the NDREA meeting last week to talk to them a little bit about this whole process. But we're basically now to the point where we can green light the project. NCEC is going to basically cover the bridge for the last year of what we're doing, because we're on a 3-year contract with OpenLMS. So we're going to continue to allow OpenLMS to run in parallel as we bring the Instructure Canvas system online. And so basically by August 1st, OpenLMS will go away and we will live launch our Instructure platform, which is all Canvas based. So I want to get into like this timeline, and then I'm going to shut up and you can ask as many questions as you want. But I just want you to understand. So if we back up about 4 months and we run up to now, why this is moving so fast now is that all of the right boxes and permissions have been checked to make sure that we're doing everything in accordance with state law and procurement, in order to get to the point where now our governing board at NCEC, which is going to have to approve a fiscal purchase of this, because it lives under the NCEC umbrella, is going to make that decision on Wednesday, May 1st. And so I've brought them along for the last 2 months on everything that we've been doing in the background, of how we want to position this to move it forward. And so we'll go for the green light on May 1st, which all indications are it's going to happen. And then May 1st, it'll get approved from our governing board. We'll sign the documentation for the implementation process and for our actual owning of the LMS system to go live. And so then by May 8th, we're anticipating that by May 8th, our actual instance, which is our online presence with the system, will be created. Okay, so once that's created and Kate and I can get into it, we can immediately go in and start setting up the profiles and get you access to it. So I would anticipate for sure the latest will be by the end of May. Everybody on this call will have access into your tenancy within the Canvas platform. And so it's like a rock and a hard place. Like, we have people who are building content, we have people who have built content, and we have people who are planning to build content into the system. So it's one of those things like, do you let the 3-year thing run out and then we go into a new grant cycle and then that's the time that we switch? Or do we pull the plug now? Kate and I will do I'll do a ton of heavy lifting to make sure everybody's content, it gets carried over to the new system, and we get everybody on the same page moving forward with a better LMS system. That's going to give us the ultimate goal end user goal in mind, which I firmly believe that's where we'll get to. So we have a 12-week implementation window for transfer that will be initiated as soon as we sign the documentation this week. And then that will kick into gear the team from Instructure that will come in with Kate and I and begin building out this entire platform. And again, in that process, though, we don't have to wait. It's not going to be live. It'll be basically we'll be in a sandbox, and that sandbox will transfer over to our live system. So we can get people in there and we can start training right away to get you up to speed with Canvas. And to be honest, I think the learning curve with Canvas is going to probably be less than that of Moodle, in my opinion. And and if you've played in the Moodle thing or you've gone through any of the Moodle trainings or any of that stuff, there are things that will transfer over. Terminology, how you build out a course, the structure of a course, what content you're looking for, and how you're going to plug that in. So there's a lot of good things there. There's also going to be things that are going to come out of this system that are going to make life way better in terms of just access. And so we can get into the nitty gritty details of that. That's going to probably be at a later training session, to be honest. But as an overview, just to kind of end on point 4 here, and then I'm going to stop talking. You can start asking lots of questions. That's how we've gotten to this point. And so I'm all ears for anything that you have for feedback or questions or whatever. But that's kind of the lay of the land as we sit right now today. Kate, got anything you want to add to that, or?
Just so I know like some people are already aware that this switch is happening, so we just wanted to address it as a whole. I have had some questions about like summer courses and credit opportunities. I know Allison talked to me about an August 9th end date for her courses. So like the open LMS site is not going to like crash or anything. So
Right.
from the 1st through the 9th, your students will still have, your teachers will still have access to finish up the courses for credit that you requested, Allison. It's just on August 1st, it will be the live launch and the rebranding. And so we will encourage users to check out the new site at that point. But those teachers of yours that will need to finish up and get their certificates, they will still have access. So I just don't want you to worry about that. That was discussed between Kevin and I.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you for that update.
One of the things that we did, and Amy and I, Amy would knows what I'm talking about here, but one of the things that we did is we actually pulled some of the college students that we knew collectively as an NCEC group. So a pretty decent number of college students that we talked to, and we just put it out to them. Like if you had your preference, whether it was a Moodle or like for an LMS, Moodle, Blackboard, distance to learning, I know is one that's used, or Canvas. Like out of your experiences that you've had in higher ed so far, which one would you prefer? And all of them came back with Canvas. So that's good, because if we have people coming out of higher ed that are familiar with how to use it and they're excited about using that, that's good. The other thing that I have been paying attention to very closely on the back end. Yeah, we talked to a couple different schools using Canvas, Janet. Yeah, and University of Mary. That's another one too that's using it. So yes. One of the things that I'm watching closely, and this is another reason why I feel like it's another feather in the hat of Instructure in order to be ahead of the game. And I don't know if anybody can truly be ahead of the game with AI, to be honest. I think we're all playing from behind. But the reality is that the LMS systems are actually playing catch up to a degree with how AI is impacting them. And I would say, in my own personal research of all the different LMS systems we looked at, Instructure is probably leading the way right now. They're actually spearheading an entire AI component within the LMS system, and I believe it's at the University of Michigan, is where they're running that as a case study right now. But they're very much on top of things when it comes to how that's going to impact what we're doing on an online learning management system, and how AI is starting to creep into that for sure. So something else just to bring up. Any other questions or thoughts or?
Was there any more talk about the badges potentially leading to credit?
Yeah, so we're going to cut that right now due to the budget constraint because it adds kind of a significant amount. So what Allison's talking about, there's a component. So we're running this on a 12-month contract to get to a new cycle. And then when we get to the new cycle, we'll look at the full suite within Structure. But one of the options that there is, which has got a lot of people actually pretty excited as this has come out, is Instructure has the capacity to build your learning gateways or your learning pathways, sorry, where you can do online, in person, and hybrid. And what it does, and I can't show you this right now because I don't actually have a sandbox to show you how this looks, but we've seen it and it's actually pretty incredible. Like, so a basic example would be like, let's just say hypothetically they were to get to the point where you needed to have a credential for dyslexia and you needed a pathway to get to dyslexia. And so if we say there's a dyslexia credential that's going to be on your license and you needed to go to a literacy conference, you needed to take 2 courses within the Indie Educational Hub to certify you, and you needed to show that. So there would be an educational pathway set up where you would click on it, and then right there it would say you need to take this course, and attend this conference. And at the conference, you would actually certify it, and that would actually upload automatically into your profile. One of the big things that I wanted out of this system was a way easier use case for a user to get their information to whoever they needed to get it to. So literally, when you get into this system, it's 2 clicks and you have a fully vetted transcript from the system. And so once you see that, you'll see here's what I've completed for credit. Here's what I'm currently in progress in. And here's things that I looked at or I dropped out of or whatever. It'll show your actual user um, progress through the system. But back to that badging idea, like you can set that up as a credential and you can actually track it all the way through. Like it'll green light once that course has been done. It'll take you to the next one as a prerequisite to the next one. And then you get to that conference, you scan a QR code and like it'll automatically upload onto your transcript within the system itself. So the overall user experience moving this direction is going to be way better. We can do that in the system that we currently have. I'm not going to completely discount the system that we're on right now. It's just not as user friendly. So as we took our primary key, here are the big issues that we have, right? That we are not getting rectified with OpenLMS. So obviously those are like the tier 1 issues that we need to deal with. But then when you started getting into the minutia and the nitty gritty of vetting out these different systems, there are things that come out of this Canvas platform when you look at the full suite of what Canvas or Instructure can offer. It will allow us to do things that we can't do, or it'll allow us to do things way more efficiently that we can do. And so there's a lot of upside to it, is what I would say. We spent a lot of time with South Dakota, actually, Kate and I, talking to them because they just rolled this out last year for themselves and they are running through Canvas. And they're having a lot of success. And, you know, after a 2-hour meeting with their point person in South Dakota, I just flat out asked them, like, is there anything that do you have any regrets? Like, do you regret making the decision the way that you went? Because obviously I'm kind of gun shy on this, having been kind of burned by OpenLMS with what they told us they were going to do and where we're at currently. And their number 1 response was, no, we have no regrets. Like the system is functioning exactly the way that we want. And they've gone all the way to the point where they're credentialing teachers through the system for renewal. And it's approved by their licensing agency at the state. Like they don't have to go through a college for credit. They're running right through the system itself. Now, on the flip side of that, we talked a lot about Montana when we first started this because Montana was working with OpenLMS, right? And they had a statewide system. Montana is transitioning to Canvas because I think they're running into the exact same issues that we are. And so that's an interesting bit of information. But the other thing that that gave me a lot of confidence in this is in Washington State. So Washington State has kind of like REAs, their regional education organizations around the state, and they've done a multi-tenancy platform system that's running the same way that we are intending this to run. So they already have a fully functioning system that looks similar to what North Dakota has done within the Instructure catalog platform, and it's really well done. And so I'm confident that, and that's like the first one that they really did, and that happened about a year and a half ago. So it's all relatively new, but it's pretty exciting. And I think at the end of the day, the other thing that's really good about this is a lot of stuff that's created online if you're working with third partners they do a lot of things with Canvas already. And so being able to port Canvas courses into the system is going to be much easier with what we're dealing with. So other questions? Some of you I know on here are already proficient in this, so this will just be like hit the ground running. And some of you, like myself, I'm not a Canvas expert. I've played with it a little bit. I have way more expertise in the Moodle side of stuff, but Kate has a lot of expertise in Canvas. She came out of Mandan, which is a fully Canvas using district. So we're going to move as fast as we can, and we're going to set this up to be to put together a timeline for how we can help train as many people that want to get trained into this as fast as possible as we move through June and July. And then we'll continue to move from there. Kate?
Who on this call has experience with Instructure and Canvas? Just raise your hand. Janet, okay. Anybody else? Just trying to
Chris
get
has
a pulse point on like who would need and how much training going into this. So
I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Kate, Janet, Chris, if you've had some experience, but from somebody who's coming into this a little bit more naive, well, my experience, like with the Moodle side, it's much more heavy on like physically building out what you're doing for your learning modules, right? So you're doing a lot of physical building, whereas Canvas, it's a lot more plug and play, where you have content and you can plug in to the tools that you're using within the structure of that course. So I think from my perspective, the speed at which you can build it out is probably a little faster on the Canvas side, because they're a
yeah,
little more organized. That's my
I
first
would
take on it.
say if you are a tenant manager who is proficient with OpenLMS, the transition to Canvas will be fairly smooth. Canvas has a lot more features to make the user experience more engaging as far as the content itself. So one of the things that I have been working on developing is like a content creation checklist of sorts. I think that as a whole, we need to set a standard for the content that we're putting out and what it looks like on Instructure. And so it's like a pretty intensive document on like what a 1-star course looks like, what a 2-star course looks like, and what a 3-star course looks like. And a lot of it is just like personal preference and the look and feel of what your course is gonna be. Um, there's a lot more features, especially with that studio. So one of the things is like having an introduction video if you are the instructor of that course to kind of outline the expectations versus like right now some courses don't have any sort of welcome other than the preloaded one that Kevin has developed. And so part of the training will be going through that checklist and all the features that Canvas has to offer. So just so that the content that we're putting out is relevant and engaging and useful. We want people to take advantage of this. And there's a lot of important information that experts in our field are putting out on Educational Hub, but right now there's not a lot of users getting that information, and a lot of it has to do with the system itself. So just I just want to be clear on that going forward that there is, with the training, there's going to be expectations on course content. So any questions on that?
This might be something you're thinking about. I'm just going to put it out there. Like we're still planning to go in the same direction with content in terms of how we originally designed it with tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, right? So like tier 1 being this is free statewide content across all tenancies. Everybody has access to it and it's free. Then that tier 2 side, which is if it's coming out from your REA, it's something you've put a lot of time into it and it's not a part, it's just a book study or an asynchronous course or whatever, like the $40 fee that's attached to it. We can do the independent gateway, payment gateways with that. Like we can still run that the exact same way. And then the tier 3 is your REA specific, right? Like if you want to do something in your REA for a school district or for your independent music teachers from around the whole entire region that you serve, whatever, you still have total control to do that. So that's all still the same. And what Kate's kind of referring back to is this, we want to make sure we had a course creation checklist originally when we were doing with Moodle. Kate's just reformatted it so it's very crystal clear. Like if you want to put out a course, here's the bare minimum that we're going to accept as a statewide course. And then here's what it would look like. And we'll work to make sure that everybody is on board with that. That's not going to be an issue at all. The one thing that I'll say right now is if you have content that's built in the system of OpenLMS right now, so if you've built something in there, it's not going to be a direct port from there over to Canvas. Okay. So I will work directly with you on your courses to make that as seamless as possible, to get that content over. So I know it's just going to be a heavy lift and it's a one-time heavy lift to get everybody over, and then we'll keep working from there. So I have no problem with that. Other things that'll happen. So I'm just going to jump down here a little bit and then we can finish up with more questions if you have them. So things that Kate and I would ask at this point in time is if you have any changes to staffing, or if you have people that you need to put on this, or you think, you know what, we're just going to put this person in touch with us. If you can send me an email, a follow up to this and let me know. Participation people. Yeah. So Chris, your question, is there going to be archived in the new system? No, it will not be archived in the new system, but all the data will be saved externally from the system when we close it out. It's not going to close out for like 9 months. Okay. OpenLMS, we're going to let everything run through. We'll be messaging to everybody participating right now in courses that this is going to come to a transition. And then once we close it, all of the data, all the user data, like in terms of their personal information, username, stuff like that, that's all porting over. But in terms of like overall completion of courses in the past, we'll have a record of all of that when the system goes offline. Yeah, we will not lose that. And okay, so then back to this. If you have changes in staffing, if you have somebody who's coming on that we don't know about, or you have somebody who's interested in this, let us know. Other things as we go through and start actually physically building this out. If you have anybody or have changed logos or branding or colors or anything like that, please let me know that, because we want to have that. And then timeline for projects. So Kate and I will get access to this by the 8th. And then we'll have something developed and we'll send it out to you. So be looking for a communication from us by May 9th. And what that's basically going to be is like, we kind of have two different tracks we've talked about. Like we want to have some concrete days where we can set up training as a group, but then we're also going to have like open shop hours. So we'll sit on Teams for like 2 hours and we'll just give you all the dates that we're going to be online on Teams doing that. So then that way, if you have questions or thoughts or comments or whatever, and then for anybody who has content that wants to work towards porting that over, we'll set up individual times where I'll work directly with you. And so basically, like, I've basically cleared my summer schedule to make sure that this can happen. So it'll be fun. But I'm excited about it, honestly, because like there's too much potential with this system. It's just we need the right partner, and we don't have the right partner right now. And that's really what it boils down to. And so we're going to get the right partner, and we're going to get this moving in the right direction, and build on the success that the system has had to this point. So I'll stop talking there. Chris, questions. Yeah, we can talk one-on-one. That's no problem. Stuff completely out of OpenLMS. We will keep OpenLMS live. Technically, our contract with them doesn't run out until May of 2025. So we don't have to close anything until May of 2025. So we got plenty runway to make sure everything with OpenLMS comes out correctly, I would say. But we're intentionally doing this now so that we don't have to have like a 2-month hard stop, and we'll ease out of that and bring our other one online. So, but just for your calendar, like what I have been explicitly very, very, very firmly telling in structure is this will be live August 1st. Okay. Like I'm adamantly telling you that will happen. And there'll be other things that we have to have conversations about as a team. And so the stakeholders group will be important because like right now, for example, when you do a hybrid course, you probably most of the time you have to do like multiple spots where you land like a tiny URL or a hyperlink for a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting or whatever, right? Like in this system, we'll get to pick one LTI connection that allows us to run seamlessly with one of those video conferencing options, right? So Teams obviously is the one that's run by the state. There's pros and cons to Team and Zoom, but my point is one of those will land in here and it will be a seamless button for you to push to start a meeting. Like there's things that are going to make things a lot more user friendly as we move through this, as we build out content. So we'll tackle those things as we go along. We don't have to make those decisions yet. So. Yeah, I mean, you can, yeah, Chris, to your point, yes, you can still land hyperlinks within the course and you could use a different one, but it's actually, if the LTI connection will embed it into the course, which makes it a seamless option to use when it comes to like a video conferencing. They have partnerships with Zoom and Teams to have a seamless connection with that. Okay. The last thing I'll say is this, reporting wise, it's going to be much better. Right now, like we can get reports out of the system and we can dive them down or kind of detail them down, but the way that, and this is getting into like the weeds of it, but so I won't go too far into it, but the way that the system will actually be structured and how everybody lives within the system, it'll actually make it easier for us to pull the data out across the entire system, regardless of REA. And that will be a really good benefit as we move forward. So there's lots of data tracking potential out of this system too, that we can get above and beyond what we're getting currently with OpenLMS.
So Kevin, along those lines, you just kind of made me think about, so there are a handful of our courses that we use directly to send data for our state systemic improvement. And so does it have the capacity for me to be able to just pull out the data or maybe even survey questions from particular courses instead of having to go into like every single one? Do you know?
I'm not 100% sure on like how they would break that out entirely from the survey portion of it. I'll look. We'll get access to that, and then I can take a look at it.
And it's not a huge thing, but it's just, you know, now with like for me having so many courses, it's just kind of tedious to go in each course, you know. It's not hard, but I mean, it just takes the time. So I was just curious.
Yep, how they can dump it all into one place. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're 41 minutes in. We do not need to take the whole hour if you don't have any questions or thoughts or comments. If you do and you just want to connect with me individually, I'm more than happy to either do it on Teams or Zoom or just email me, call me, whatever. We want this to be as transparent as possible as we move forward. But again, I'm just going to reiterate the fact, like, I appreciate your patience with this, but I think we're moving in a direction that's going to be far better for everybody involved. And we're going to get out of this what we want to get out of it. So anything else? So if you hear me cursing OpenLMS's name, there's a reason. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, I'll hang out here. I appreciate your guys' time. And again, please reach out if you have any questions or anything like that. But I would say for your schedules, be thinking May 9th. There's going to be a communication coming out from Kate and I, which will have kind of our next steps with all of our team for our greater team of stakeholders, looking at how we can do some training and stuff like that, because we'll have a much clearer timeline from Instructure too. But basically this week, it's all going to be green lighted and we'll be moving forward. So have a wonderful day.